With Indiana winning the national championship just 1 week ago, we saw the completion of the greatest turnaround in college football history. The losingest program in the history of college football going on a perfect 16-0 run and taking home the national championship for the first time in school history. But honestly, I thought this narrative was a little overrated. It was certainly impressive, but quick turnarounds aren't all that uncommon in the era of transfer portal and NIL. I assumed that Indiana's season was mostly the result of an elite coach getting the financial backing of a big program and poaching talent from other programs. But this couldn't be further from the truth. This season from Indiana is way crazier than the media has made it out to be. It is the greatest coaching feat of our generation, an accomplishment so ridiculous that it was previously thought to be mathematically impossible. To understand the sheer scope of this championship, we need to take a brief look at blue chip ratio. In recruiting rankings, a blue chip recruit is a player that is ranked as either a 4-star or 5-star by one of the major recruiting sites. In each recruiting class, only about 400 players nationwide fall under this blue chip category. So blue chip ratio is the ratio of blue chip recruits to other recruits that a team has signed in their last 4 recruiting classes. So let's say a team signed 100 total recruits in their last 4 recruiting classes, and 60 of those recruits were either a 4 or 5-star. This makes the team's blue chip ratio 60% because 60% of their signed recruits are blue chip recruits. This metric is incredibly important because it takes a certain level of talent to win a national championship. Since blue chip ratio was first available as a statistic back in 2005, every single national champion up to Ohio State in 2024 has had at least a 50% blue chip ratio, with 2024 Ohio State having the highest blue chip ratio ever at 90%. This seemed to indicate that the core of a championship team had to be built with elite talent recruited from high school, even in the era of the transfer portal. So, what was Indiana's blue chip ratio this season? 8%. This is so staggeringly low it is beyond comprehension. Only one of Indiana's conference opponents had a lower blue chip ratio than they did. When I first saw this statistic, I figured there was only one logical conclusion to Indiana's talent level. Surely most of their team was made of high-ranking recruits that transferred in from other programs. But this isn't true either. In 2024 and 2025, Indiana ranked number 30 and number 25 in team transfer rankings respectively, only getting 5 total 4-stars to transfer in the 2 classes combined. So even after these 2 recruiting classes, Indiana still had one of the lowest talent pools in the country. In fact, this Indiana team ranked last in the Big Ten and number 72 in the country in talent composite rankings, with 0 5-star and only 7 4-star recruits on their entire roster. Georgia, who ranked number 1 in the country in talent composite rankings, had 13 5-star and 57 4-star recruits on their roster. Whatever way you look at it, Indiana should not have had the necessary talent to compete for a national championship. So the question becomes, how? How did a team with such a low level of talent on paper become an unstoppable juggernaut? Well, that answer is complicated, but the first and most important thing we need to understand is the incredible journey of their head coach. Curt Cignetti's journey to the top was a slow and grueling process. He spent his early years as a quarterbacks coach with short stints at Davidson, Rice, and Temple, before a 7-year stay at the University of Pittsburgh, spending time as a recruiting coordinator, tight ends coach, and quarterbacks coach. He had his fair share of success in Pittsburgh, with his quarterback Pete Gonzalez leading the Big East in completions, yards, and touchdowns in 1997. From there, he moved to NC State, where he would stay for 7 years, serving as their recruiting coordinator and switching between tight ends coach and quarterbacks coach. His first year as quarterbacks coach just so happened to be the senior year of star quarterback Phillip Rivers. Rivers flourished under Signetti, leading the ACC in completions, yards, and touchdowns, and leading the country in completion percentage and QBR. Rivers would go on to get drafted 4th overall and set several franchise records for the Chargers over his 18-year NFL career. After his time in NC State, Signetti left for Alabama to be their recruiting coordinator and wide receivers coach. He came to Alabama at the perfect time, joining a loaded first-year coaching staff that featured Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Signetti would spend 4 years in Tuscaloosa and helped contribute to some of the best recruiting classes in the country. His recruiting hit list included Heisman winner Mark Ingram and other superstars such as Julio Jones, Eddie Lacy, and Trent Richardson. These guys would ultimately contribute to Alabama's perfect record in 2009, securing the program's first national title since 1992. By 2010, Curt Cignetti had been coaching for over 25 years. Despite his vast experience and long track record of success, he had still still never gotten a job as an offensive or defensive coordinator. So, at the end of the 2010 season, Signetti left Alabama to become the head coach of the IUP Crimson Hawks, the Division II program that his father had coached at for 20 years. It can't be understated what a move like this must have felt like. At Alabama, you get steak after every practice, you get to work in top-notch facilities, and most importantly, you get to work with the best recruits in the country. Signetti easily could have sat pretty and won a bunch of national championships under Saban, but he gave it all up to work here because he had always wanted to become a head coach. Now that he had a head coaching position, he just had to work his way up the ranks. After 6 very successful seasons at IUP, including a Division II national championship, Coach Sig moved up to Division I FCS program Elon. After 2 good years there, he moved to the prestigious FCS program JMU. After 3 straight conference championships and 3 straight deep playoff runs, Signetti guided JMU through its move to Division I FBS. JMU saw immediate success in their first 2 years in the top flight, winning 2 straight division titles. Then, finally, Coach Cignetti would get his chance to be a head coach of a Power 4 program, as Indiana came calling. In the Hoosiers' search for a new head coach, they had a series of criteria: an experienced, successful coach, a high-level recruiter, a proven developer of talent, someone who's had success with quarterbacks, someone with a grasp of transfer portal and NIL, and perhaps most importantly, a winner. It's almost as if this criteria was written to describe Coach Sig. He was the perfect hire. Now Signetti was a head coach of a Power 4 program, but he was taking on a massive challenge. Indiana was the losingest football program of all time and had just finished last in the Big Ten. It was time to take on his biggest challenge, changing people's minds. Shortly after Coach Signetti was hired, he traveled to Lucas Oil Stadium, the site of the Big Ten championship game, and made a strong declaration: "We'll be playing in this game next year." Later on, he was introduced to the Indiana fans at a basketball game and famously said this: These were monumental statements, and they were laughed off by the media and even Hoosier fans. They just took Signetti for a guy who talked big to build up hype. Again, they had just finished last in the Big Ten and hadn't won the Big Ten title since 1967. They were in a loaded conference with top dogs like Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State. A turnaround was going to take much longer than 1 year. But in Signetti's first year, the Hoosiers saw instant success, jumping out to a 4-0 start, albeit against pretty weak competition. There still wasn't really any belief in the hearts of Hoosier fans, as football games were more of an excuse to tailgate and party, with most fans only staying for the first half or not going at all. Signetti had to change that, so before their game against Maryland, he sent the following email to Indiana students: "We're trying to do something special Saturday, and I want our IU students there to experience it. It's been 57 years since IU football started a season 5-0, but we have a chance to do it Saturday with a win over a very good Maryland team. We have every intention of making it happen, and I'm asking for your support. We need you there for the opening kick. We need you there in the stands being loud in the first quarter, and the second quarter, and in the third, and most importantly, in the fourth. When the clock hits 0 and we're 5-0, I want you there to be able to celebrate a historic win with us. The tailgates can wait, the parties can wait. If you need to study, that can wait too. There are big things happening with IU football, and you're a big part of it. I look forward to seeing you for 4 quarters on Saturday." And well, his fans showed out, staying all 4 quarters in a messy, turnover-filled game in the rain. It was a close game entering the fourth, but Indiana ultimately pulled away to secure the program's first 5-0 record in 57 years. Following the game, the Indiana players ran over to the student section to thank them for showing out. Coach Sig would thank the students as well in an email that read, "On behalf of the entire IU football program, I have 2 words for the IU student body. Thank you. Today we picked up a huge win over Maryland to improve to 5-0 on the season. The weather wasn't great, the football wasn't perfect, but you were. Yesterday, I asked you to come out and deal with the elements and to put your weekend events on hold and be there for us for 4 quarters. You did it. We felt your energy, and you had a big impact on us winning this football game. Go out tonight, have fun, and celebrate a big-time win for our football program." This is how you build a connection with your fan base, and this is how you build belief in a program that frankly hasn't had much of it in its entire entire existence. This is the perfect example of what makes this coach so special. He does all the little things right and builds a genuine connection with his fan base. But to be truly respected on a national stage, you have to do the big things right. You have to win games. It is now time to take on the difficult task of deciphering the architecture of the Indiana football team. There's a couple of keys to Signetti's coaching style that pop out immediately. The first is the loyalty of his coaching staff. Indiana's national championship staff included offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan and defensive coordinator Bryant Haynes, who had both followed Coach Sig from James Madison. With several successful seasons in those roles, either of those guys should have left to be head coaches at other programs prior to 2025, but they stayed the course and were ultimately rewarded with a national championship. That loyalty extends to the position coaches and players as well, as 10 position coaches and 13 players followed Signetti to Indiana from JMU. That goes hand in hand with another key to his coaching success, and that is demanding total buy-in from his players. Yes, Curt Cignetti is an elite coach, but he doesn't turn just anyone into a great football player. He looks for a very specific brand of player, one that will buy in completely to his scheme, and one that plays completely unselfishly and takes no plays off. If it was easy to filter this kind of player out from every other player in the country, then everyone would do it, but it's not. This is where all of those years Signetti spent as a recruiting coordinator, and then all of those years climbing the ranks as a head coach come into play. He is literally built to find diamonds in the rough, and he will know better than anybody if a player playing at a smaller college will be able to hang with the top dogs or not. The best example of this is Elijah Surratt, who started his college career at a very bad FCS football program. Signetti found him and got him to transfer to JMU and then Indiana, where he was their #1 wide receiver in 2024 and 2025. So just 3 years after playing on a dying football program, Surratt is a national champion and projected to be taken in day 2 of the NFL draft. Just incredible player development. Now, this is all great. You've got a fantastic head coach with a staff and team full of guys that are loyal and will buy in completely to the scheme. But there is still a minimum level of required talent that is necessary to win at the top level. You don't just beat a team full of 5 stars because you have a better mentality than they do. And that brings us to another key part of Signetti's recruitment, and that is targeting older players. I'm sure many of you have seen that 2025 Indiana was the oldest team in college football, with an insane average age of 22.5 years old. But that trend started in 2024. Several of Indiana's key players that season were older guys that had transferred in for their 4th, 5th, or 6th year of college football. These older guys have actual game experience and are more mature physically and mentally. These are features that incoming freshmen don't have, no matter how great they were as a high school player. So, the 2024 Indiana football team had a strong head coach and coordinators with lots of experience together, a roster full of guys with lots of in-game experience, and ultimately a roster full of guys that are completely willing to do whatever their coach asks of them for the sake of the team. With this structure, Indiana stunned the college football world in 2024 with the first 11-win season in program history, making the playoffs and finishing 3rd in the Big Ten after finishing last in the conference just a year prior. The statistics from that season give us a glimpse into the machine-like system in which Curt Cignetti runs his teams. In 2024, Indiana was one of the most disciplined teams in the country, finishing number 3 in turnover margin, number 9 in fewest penalties per game, number 2 in team passing efficiency, number 8 in third down conversion percentage, number 2 in total defense, and number 7 in team tackles for loss. These statistics require a high level of discipline from your players, something that is perhaps easier to get out of older, experienced players that have been overlooked, as opposed to younger, inexperienced players that are highly ranked and have big egos. Anyway, this was an incredible turnaround, but the assumptions about the talent level required to win a championship still seem to hold true. Indiana's 10 wins had all come against unranked opponents, and their 2 losses had come against the only 2 ranked teams they played. Team unity and coaching could bring lots of success, but when push comes to shove, the talent gap between them and the top programs was just too much to overcome. But Signetti believed in his system. He just needed to keep building his roster, and ultimately, he needed to find the perfect guy for the most important position. When Indiana signed Fernando Mendoza from the University of California, no one knew the talent that they were getting. In fact, Mendoza was ranked outside the top 25 in CBS preseason quarterback rankings. This didn't seem all that crazy at the time. Yes, Mendoza did have a strong year statistically, but he did not earn any conference honors, and his Cal Bears had gone 6-7, with their only FBS wins coming against teams with losing records. So yes, Signetti had found an underrated and overlooked quarterback, but it was more than that. Mendoza fit his unselfish, small small ego style perfectly, which is incredibly rare to find in quarterbacks. A lot of guys seem great, they show a nice media-trained face to the camera and maybe thank God along the way. But how many of those guys truly live like that outside the spotlight? Not many, but it certainly seems like Mendoza is one of those rare exceptions. He's a devout Catholic, one who frequents Mass and confession, and prays a rosary with his brother before every game. This is genuine faith, not faith that is conditional on success, and not faith that is proclaimed just to look good on camera. When you have a leader that lives in genuine virtue, you have a chance for truly extraordinary things as a team. It brings to mind this quote from Nick Saban: "When the best players on your team are the best people on your team, you have a great opportunity for great unity on your team." And great unity is what this Indiana team had, with the players constantly talking about their love for each other in interviews, and this love is a key factor in teammates picking each other up and staying composed in tough games. So, this Indiana team had all the pieces in place. They had the head coach, the staff, the roster, and the quarterback necessary to beat teams with significantly more raw talent than they had. This was a coaching masterclass, but there's one thing that this team had that can't be taught. No matter how perfect your practices are, you can never simulate the pressure of an in-game situation. In the biggest moments, it's on the players to come through and make a play. You really can't know if a player has the clutch gene until they are put in a tough situation. But this Hoosier team rose to the occasion time and time again. Like when they played at Iowa and faced a pivotal third down late in the game in front of a roaring crowd and a stellar defense. With pressure in his face, Mendoza delivered a ball in stride to Surratt, who broke a tackle and scored the game-winning touchdown. Then the next week against Oregon in Eugene, when Mendoza had just thrown a pick six to tie the score at 20 apiece. The Hoosiers stayed composed, and Mendoza found Surratt again late in the fourth quarter and ultimately won the game by 10. Then it was Penn State, and perhaps the most famous moment of the season. Here, Indiana had to go 87 yards in a minute and a half with no timeouts against a crushing Penn State defense. The Hoosiers flew down the field, hitting 4 different receivers, including a huge catch by Charlie Becker to get the ball down to the 7-yard line. Then, on 3rd and goal, with immense pressure in his face, Mendoza hit Omar Cooper Jr., who made an unbelievable catch to win the game for Indiana. This level of clutch is something you just can't coach. As a player, you either have it or you don't. The next big moment came late in the Big Ten title game as the Hoosiers faced a pivotal 3rd and 6 deep in their own territory. Convert this and they basically win the game. Don't convert and they risk giving up a game-winning or game-tying drive. Once again, with pressure in his face, Mendoza found his man Charlie Becker to pick up a first down and win Indiana's first Big Ten title since 1967. And then, of course, all of the huge plays in the national championship. The 4th down catch by Becker, the 4th and 5 run by Mendoza, the 3rd and long catch by Becker again, and ultimately the interception by Sharp to win the game. Over and over, this Indiana team was faced with pressure situations in big games, and they delivered every single time. The Indiana Hoosiers are a deserving champion, and the statistics back them up. 2025 Indiana ranked number 1 in turnover margin, number 1 in fewest penalty yards per game, number 1 in team passing efficiency, number 1 in third down conversion percentage, number 3 in total defense, and number 2 in team tackles for loss. Just truly incredible. These are the numbers of a team that stays disciplined in their blocking and tackling from the opening kickoff to the final whistle. These are the numbers of a team that don't get heated and give up stupid penalties. These are the numbers of a team that keep their chins up and look to the next play when things go wrong. And ultimately, these are the numbers of one of the greatest and most unlikely champions our sport has ever seen. Well, that's all I've got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more of my content in the future, hit that subscribe button down below.